The chamber was enormous. It stretched upward like a cathedral made of light and metal, with seats carved into the curved walls in rings that rose toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Representatives from 200 species filled those seats, their bodies shaped by evolution on worlds scattered across the galaxy. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no solid form at all, existing as clouds of glowing particles held together by magnetic fields. At the center of it all stood a single podium, and behind it sat the High Council, the 12 oldest and most powerful species in known space. They looked down at the assembly with the quiet confidence of those who had ruled for 10,000 years. Ambassador Daniel Carter stood in the human section, a small balcony near the back of the chamber. Earth had been given this spot 40 years ago when humanity first joined the Galactic Council. It was far from the podium, far from the decision-makers. It was the seat of a species that was tolerated but not respected. Carter was 53 years old, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen too many of these sessions to be surprised by anything. Beside him stood Laura Bennett, his aide, a woman half his age with sharp features and sharper instincts. She had been with the diplomatic corps for only 5 years, but Carter trusted her more than anyone else on his staff. "They're going to talk about the Fringe War again," Lavra said quietly. Carter nodded. "They always do." The Fringe War had ended 8 years ago. Earth had lost 11 ships and 4,000 soldiers defending a colony that the Council had refused to protect. The Vornathi Dominion had called the conflict a minor border dispute and declined to intervene. Humanity had fought alone and won alone, but the galaxy remembered only the losses. High Arbiter Zelthos rose from his seat on the Council platform. He was Vornathi tall, thin, with skin like polished stone and eyes that glowed faint blue. His species had controlled the galactic gates for 6,000 years, and they never let anyone forget it. "We gathered today to discuss the allocation of Council resources," Zelthos announced, his voice amplified to fill the chamber. "And we must address a matter of growing concern." Carter felt Lara tense beside him. He put a hand on her arm. "The human delegation has repeatedly requested increased military support for their outer colonies," Zelthos continued. "They have asked for access to advanced defensive systems. They have petitioned for expanded trade rights. And yet, what have they contributed to this council?" Murmurs rippled through the assembly. "Their fleet is small. Their technology is primitive. They lost ships in the Fringe War that any competent species would have saved." Zelthos paused, letting the words sink in. "I must ask, are humans truly partners in this council? Or are they simply a protected species surviving on the generosity of their betters?" Laughter erupted from several sections of the chamber. The Kelvorians, an ancient species with long limbs and silver skin, were particularly amused. Their representative, Councillor Drethon, leaned forward in his seat with a thin smile. "Perhaps we should reclassify them," Drethon suggested. "The Council has categories for developing species. Species that require guidance and protection. Surely humanity fits that description." More laughter. More agreement. Laura's hands were shaking. "Sir, we have to respond." Carter shook his head slowly. "No, we don't. They're humiliating us in front of the entire galaxy." "Yes," Carter agreed. "They are." The mockery continued for another hour. Species that had never spoken to a human joined in, eager to prove their loyalty to the powerful. They called humanity soft. They called them weak. They said Earth was a death world that produced nothing but fragile creatures too, stubborn to know their place. Finally, Zelthos raised his hand for silence. "I propose a motion," he announced. "Earth's voting rights shall be reduced by half. Their requests for military and trade support shall be deprioritized. They shall remain members of this council, but only as observers. This is the appropriate status for a species that cannot defend itself. Drethon seconded the motion immediately. The vote was quick. 162 species voted in favor. 31 abstained. 7 voted against, but their objections were noted and ignored. Earth's status was downgraded in less than 10 minutes. Carter stood slowly. The chamber fell quiet, curious to see how the humans would react. Would they protest? Would they beg? Would they threaten and then back down when they realized they had no power? Carter walked to the podium. "On behalf of Earth," he said, his voice steady, "I would like to thank the Council for this vote." Confusion spread through the assembly. "You have made your position very clear," Carter continued. "For 40 years, my species has honored every treaty we signed. We have followed every rule. We have asked only for fairness and received contempt instead. Today, you have clarified what we mean to you." He looked up at Zelthos. The High Arbiter was frowning, uncertain. "We accept your decision," Carter said. "And we thank you for your honesty." He turned and walked back to the human section. Laura followed, her face pale. "That's it," she whispered. "We just accept it?" Carter gathered his documents and placed them in his case. His movements were calm and precise. "We are leaving now," he said. "And when we return to Earth, we will deliver our report." "And then what?" Carter looked at her. For the first time since the session began, something flickered in his eyes. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was something older and colder. "Then we stop pretending," he said. They walked out of the chamber together. Behind them, the council returned to its business, already forgetting the humans they had just humiliated. They would remember soon enough. The shuttle descended through gray clouds over Geneva. Rain streaked across the windows as the city appeared below, its old stone buildings standing beside towers of glass and steel. The headquarters of the United Nations Space Command sat at the center of it all, a structure that looked small compared to the alien stations Carter had just left behind. But appearances, as Carter knew well, could be deceiving. President Nathan Cole was waiting in the Situation Room. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and the posture of someone who had spent 20 years in the Navy before entering politics. His face showed no expression as Carter entered with Laura close behind. "Ambassador," Cole said, "I watched the broadcast." "The whole world watched. Then you know what happened, sir." Cole nodded slowly. "They humiliated us. They stripped our rights. And you thanked them for it." "I did. Some people are calling for your resignation. They say you were weak." Carter set his case on the table. "And what do you say, Mr. President?" Cole stared at him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "I say it's about time we stopped playing their game." The door opened and 3 more people entered. Admiral Megan Clark commanded Earth's defense fleet. She was a small woman with iron gray hair and eyes that had stared down alien warlords without blinking. Director Kevin Shaw ran Earth Intelligence Services, a man so quiet that most people forgot he was in the room until he spoke. And Dr. Amy Torres led Project Blackwall, Earth's most classified research program. They took their seats around the table. "Ambassador," Admiral Clark said, "I need to confirm something before we proceed. At any point during that council session, did you want to tell them the truth?" Carter allowed himself a small smile. "Every second of every minute. But you didn't. No, the time wasn't right. Now it is." President Cole leaned forward. "Then let's begin. Director Shaw, how long have we maintained the compliance facade?" Shaw's voice was soft but clear. 32 years, Mr. President. We started hiding our true capabilities 8 years after joining the Council. Explain for the record." Shaw pressed a button and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed Earth's position in the galaxy, a small blue dot surrounded by vast empires. When humanity first reached the stars, Shaw began, we encountered species that had been spacefaring for thousands of years. We learned quickly that they did not welcome competition. Any species that advanced too fast was seen as a threat. Some were conquered. Some were destroyed. A few were simply isolated until they collapsed. Earth was young and weak, Admiral Clark added. We couldn't fight them. Not then, Shaw continued. So we made a decision. We would join the Council. We would sign their treaties. We would follow their rules. And while we did all of that, we would quietly continue developing in secret. We showed them a small fleet and primitive weapons. We let them believe we were harmless. Lavra spoke for the first time since arriving. But we're not harmless. No, Dr. Torres said. We are not. She replaced Shaw's display with new images. Ships appeared in the hologram sleek, angular vessels, unlike anything the galaxy had seen. This is our real fleet, Torres explained. 914 warships stationed across 47 hidden bases in deep space. The Council knows about 200 of our ships. They have no idea the rest exist. More images appeared. Weapon systems. Engine designs. Defensive technology. 25 years ago, we achieved faster than light travel that does not depend on the galactic gates. We can go anywhere without their permission. 15 years ago, we developed energy weapons that operate on principles they haven't discovered yet. 10 years ago, we created defensive shields that can absorb more damage than their best battleships can deal. We've been ready for a long time, Admiral Clark said. We just needed a reason to stop hiding. President Cole stood and walked to the window. The rain was still falling over Geneva. I never wanted this, he said quietly. I hoped the galaxy would accept us eventually. I hoped we could earn our place through patience and good faith. He turned back to face the room. But they laughed at us. They stripped our rights like we were children. They called us weak and soft and unfit for the stars. His voice hardened. They were wrong. Carter nodded. What are your orders, Mr. President? Cole was silent for a moment. Then he spoke. Prepare a transmission to the Galactic Council. We are withdrawing from every treaty we have ever signed. Trade agreements. Military limitations. Technology sharing. Territorial boundaries. All of it. Laura's eyes widened. Sir, that will cause chaos. Yes, Cole agreed. It will. And when they demand to know why, we will tell them the truth. We honored every agreement we made. We followed every rule. And they rewarded us with contempt. He sat back down at the table. The message will end with these words. Humanity will no longer be bound by agreements made in contempt. Admiral Clark was already typing commands into her tablet. I'll have the fleet on standby within 6 hours. Director Shaw, I want intelligence on every potential threat response. Already working on it, sir. Dr. Torres, prepare a demonstration. Something that will make the galaxy understand exactly what they're dealing with. Torres smiled. I have just the thing. President Cole looked around the table at his team. These were the people who had kept humanity's secrets for 3 decades. They had watched their species be mocked and insulted while knowing the truth. Now the truth would come out. Send the transmission, Cole said. Let them see what humanity really is. 12 hours later, the Galactic Council received withdrawal notices for every treaty Earth had ever signed. The messages arrived simultaneously across 200 diplomatic channels. The galaxy would never be the same. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through drygrass. Earth had withdrawn from every treaty. Every single one. In 40 years of Council membership, humanity had signed over 300 agreements covering trade, military cooperation, territorial boundaries, and technology sharing. All of them were now void. On the Kelvorian homeworld, Trade Minister Selith stared at her screens in disbelief. Numbers were falling everywhere she looked. "This cannot be happening," she whispered. But it was happening. Earth had quietly become essential to dozens of supply chains across the galaxy. Human medical compounds, developed from the unique biology of their death world, were used to treat diseases on 40 different planets. Human engineers had designed components that powered Kelvorian communication networks. Human food shipments fed colonies that could not grow their own crops. All of that stopped overnight. "We need to contact them," Selith told her staff. "We need to negotiate." "They are not responding to communication requests," an aide replied. "No one can reach them." On Station Varanthos, the Galactic Council was in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other while the High Council tried to restore order. High Arbiter Zelthos sat in his chair with his stone-like face twisted into an expression of confusion. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that. They were supposed to accept their downgraded status and be grateful they were allowed to remain in the council at all. Instead, they had walked away. "They are bluffing," Zelthos declared, silencing the chamber. "This is a tantrum from a child species. They will come crawling back within a week when they realize they cannot survive without council support." Councillor Drethon was not so certain. He had lived for 400 years and had seen many species rise and fall. Something about the human ambassador's calm response troubled him. "Perhaps," Drethon said carefully, "we should approach this with caution." Zelthos waved his hand dismissively. "Caution? They are insects. I will remind them of their place." He turned to his military commander, Fleet Commander Varax, who stood waiting near the council platform. "Take 50 warships to the human colony on Horizon 4, Zelthos ordered. "Establish a blockade. Cut off their supplies. They will surrender within days." Varax bowed. "It will be done, High Arbiter." The Vornathi fleet departed that same day. 3 days later, 50 warships dropped out of hyperspace near Horizon 4. The colony was small by galactic standards, only 200,000 humans, living on a world at the edge of known space. It had a single orbital station and no visible military presence. Commander Varax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and smiled. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Tell them to surrender their colony and prepare for inspection. Resistance will be..." His tactical officer interrupted. "Commander, we have contacts emerging from the system's asteroid belt." "Contacts? How many?" The officer's voice trembled. 140, sir." Varax felt his blood turn cold. "That's impossible. Human military records show they have fewer than 200 ships in their entire fleet. Sir, these ships match no known human designs. They are larger than anything in our database." The view screen flickered and showed the approaching fleet. The ships were sleek and angular, painted in dark colors that seemed to absorb the starlight. They moved in perfect formation, like predators circling prey. A voice came through the communication channel. It was calm and steady. "Vornathi fleet, this is Captain Derek Lane of Defense Group 7. You have entered human-protected space without authorization. You will withdraw immediately." Varax laughed, though it sounded hollow even to his own ears. "Defense Group 7? We have no records of any such unit. You are attempting to deceive us with stolen ships and false markings. Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly." There was a pause. "You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal," Captain Lane replied. "This is your only warning." Varax ended the channel and turned to his weapons officer. "Fire a warning shot across their orbital station. Show them we are not impressed by their theater." The Eternal Dominion's main cannon charged and fired. A beam of energy streaked toward the station and then vanished. "What happened?" Varax demanded. Sir, the station. It has some kind of shield. Our weapon had no effect. Before Varax could respond, something hit his ship. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as alarms screamed across every deck. Lights flickered. Consoles sparked. Report. Varax shouted. Our engines are offline, sir. A single shot from the human fleet disabled our main drive. One shot? Yes, sir. Our shields did nothing. The weapon passed through them like they weren't there. Varax stared at the view screen. The human fleet had not moved. They hung in space like silent judges, waiting. How is this possible? He whispered. His communication officer looked up with fear in his eyes. Sir, the human captain is transmitting again. Put him through. Captain Lane's voice filled the bridge. Commander Varax, your flagship is disabled. Your fleet is outmatched. You may retreat with your ships and crews intact. This offer will not be repeated. Varax wanted to fight. Every instinct told him to order his fleet into battle, to show these humans that the Vonathi did not surrender. But he looked at his tactical display. 140 human ships against his 50. Technology his people could not explain. Weapons that ignored his shields. All ships, Varax ordered quietly, reverse course. Return to Vonathi space. His crew obeyed in silence. As the Vonathi fleet limped away from Horizon 4, Varax began composing a message to High Arbiter Zelthos. He did not know how to explain what had just happened. He only knew that everything they believed about humanity was wrong. Across the galaxy, other species were learning the same lesson. Earth had been hiding something. Something big. And now the galaxy had to face a truth they had never considered. Humanity was not weak. Humanity had never been weak. They had simply been waiting. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest in 1,000 years. Every species sent their senior representatives. Every seat was filled. The chamber hummed with fear and confusion. High Arbiter Zelthos stood at the central podium, trying to project confidence. But the report from Commander Varax had shaken him. 140 ships that appeared from nowhere. Weapons that passed through shields. A flagship disabled by a single shot. We must form a coalition, Zelthos declared. Earth has revealed itself as a threat to galactic stability. We must unite against them before they become too powerful to stop. Counselor Drethon shook his head slowly. Too powerful to stop. Arbiter, I think that moment may have already passed. Nonsense. They have a few hundred ships at most. Between us, we command tens of thousands. They cannot stand against the entire galaxy. Can't they? Drethon asked. We sent 50 warships to blockade one small colony. They had 140 waiting. How many more are hidden in places we don't know about? Before Zelthos could respond, a signal alert echoed through the chamber. Every screen in the assembly flickered and changed. A human face appeared. President Nathan Cole stood in what looked like a simple office. Behind him, a window showed blue sky and the distant shape of mountains. He wore no uniform, no symbols of power. He looked like an ordinary man, but when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a species that had been pushed too far. Members of the Galactic Council, Cole began. I am addressing you directly because your leadership refused to receive our ambassador. That is your right. But you will hear what I have to say. Zelthos tried to cut the transmission. Nothing happened. Human technology had taken control of the Council's own communication systems. For 40 years, Cole continued, humanity has been a member of this council. For 40 years, we have honored every treaty we signed. We have followed every rule. We have asked only for fairness and respect. He paused, letting the words settle. You gave us neither. You called us weak. You called us primitive. You reduced our voting rights because you believed we could not defend ourselves. Cole's expression hardened. You were wrong. The image shifted. Instead of Cole's office, the screens now showed open space. Stars glittered in the background. And floating in perfect formation was a fleet larger than anything the Council had ever seen. This is the true Earth Defense Fleet. Cole's voice continued over the images. 914 warships. 47 hidden bases across the galaxy. Technology we developed in secret while you laughed at our public fleet. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some representatives stood from their seats. Others simply stared in disbelief. 25 years ago, we achieved faster-than-light travel that does not require your gates. We can move through the galaxy without your permission, without your knowledge. We chose not to use this capability publicly because we hoped to earn your trust. The fleet on screen began to move. Ships shifted position with impossible precision, turning and accelerating in patterns that defied known physics. 15 years ago, we developed weapons that operate on principles your scientists have not discovered. 10 years ago, we created shields that can absorb more damage than your best warships can deal. The camera zoomed in on a single vessel, a massive ship at the center of the formation. It was the flagship of Admiral Megan Clark, the Silent Thunder. We did not build this fleet to conquer you, Cole said. We built it to protect ourselves from the day when your contempt turned into aggression. That day came when the Vornathi tried to blockade our colony on Horizon 4. The screen showed footage from the encounter. 50 Vornathi ships facing 140 human vessels. The flagship disabled by a single shot. The retreat. We could have destroyed them, Cole said quietly. Every ship. Every crew. We had the power, and they gave us the reason. But we chose not to. Because unlike some species in this council, humanity does not mistake power for permission to abuse others. The image returned to Cole's face. I am not asking for your friendship. I am not asking for your approval. I am telling you the truth about what we are and what we can do. You may accept us as equals, or you may fear us as enemies. That choice is yours. But know this, we will no longer hide. We will no longer pretend to be weak so that you feel comfortable. And we will never again accept being treated with contempt by species who are not brave enough to show us the respect we have earned. The transmission ended. For a long moment, the council chamber was silent. Then Zeltho spoke, his voice shaking with anger. This is an act of war. They have threatened us. We must respond with force. He looked around the chamber, searching for support that no one met his eyes. Who will stand with me? Zelthos demanded. Who will join a coalition to put humanity back in their place? Silence. Finally, Councillor Drethon spoke. I will not join your coalition, Arbiter. And I doubt anyone else will either. Why not? They are one species. We are hundreds. Because, Drethon said slowly, I just watched one of their ships disable your flagship with a single shot. Because they have 900 warships that we did not know existed. Because they have technology that our scientists cannot explain. He stood and faced the chamber. And because they chose not to destroy the fleet we sent against them. They had every right to. We gave them reason. But they let our people go. Drethon shook his head. That tells me something important about humanity. They are not the monsters we wanted them to be. They are simply tired of being treated like nothing. Zeltho sputtered with rage. But the council was no longer listening to him. Drethon turned toward the human section of the chamber, empty now, but not forgotten. I will travel to Earth, he announced. I will meet with their leaders, and I will find out what they want. It was the first step toward a new future. The galaxy did not know it yet, but everything was about to change. 3 months had passed since Earth abolished every treaty. 3 months since President Cole's broadcast shook the galaxy. 3 months since the Vornithy retreat from Horizon 4. The galaxy waited for war, that it never came. Human ships patrolled their borders, but did not cross them. Human traders offered to resume commerce, but demanded fair prices. Human diplomats responded to inquiries, but made no demands. This confused the Council more than any attack would have. They should be conquering us, Trade Minister Saleth said during a private meeting of Kelvorian leaders. They have the power. Why aren't they using it? No one had an answer. Councillor Dreth's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere on a rainy morning in Geneva. He looked out the window at the human city below, buildings of stone and glass, streets filled with vehicles, parks where children played. Despite the weather, it looked so ordinary, so peaceful. It was hard to believe this small world had produced a species that could challenge the entire galaxy. Ambassador Daniel Carter met him at the landing pad. The human looked the same as he had during the council session. Calm, patient, unreadable. Councillor Drethon, Carter said, extending his hand in the human greeting. Thank you for coming. Drethon took the hand carefully. Human grips could be surprisingly strong. I will be honest, Ambassador. I did not want to come. 3 months ago, I voted to reduce your species to observer status. I called you inferior. Carter nodded. I remember. I was wrong. Yes, Carter agreed. You were. They walked together into the United Nations complex. Human officials watched them pass but said nothing. Drethon noticed that none of them looked afraid. None of them looked angry. They simply looked at him with quiet curiosity, as if he were a visitor from a distant land rather than a representative of a species that had mocked them for decades. President Cole received them in a conference room with windows overlooking the city. He stood as they entered and offered his own hand to Drethon. Counselor, I'm glad you came personally. I could not send a subordinate, Drethon replied. This matter is too important. They sat across from each other at a long table. Carter and Laura Bennett took seats beside the president. Admiral Clark stood near the window, watching the rain. I will be direct, Drethon said. The galaxy does not understand what is happening. You have power beyond anything we imagined, but you have not used it to expand. You have not conquered anyone. You have not even punished the Vornithy for their blockade attempt. That's correct, Cole said. Why? Cole leaned back in his chair. Because we never wanted war, Counselor. We never wanted to conquer anyone. We wanted something much simpler. And what is that? Respect. The word hung in the air. For 40 years, Cole continued, we did everything right. We followed the rules. We honored our agreements. We contributed to the council. And in return, we were treated like nothing. Our requests were ignored. Our sacrifices were mocked. Our people were called soft and weak and unfit for the stars. His voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the surface. We built our fleet because we knew that respect would never be given freely. We had to earn it. And the only currency the galaxy accepts is power. Drethon was silent for a moment. Then he asked the question that had brought him across the stars. What do you want from us, President Cole? What does humanity want? A seat at the table, Cole replied. A real one. Not in the observer section. Not as a junior partner or a protected species. We want to sit among the founding members of the council with full voting rights and full respect. That has never been offered to any species less than a 1,000 years old. Then it's time to change that policy. Drethon considered this. Back home, the council was in chaos. Zelthos had been removed from power by his own people, blamed for provoking a conflict they could not win. A reformist government had taken his place, eager to avoid further embarrassment. The galaxy was afraid. An afraid species made desperate choices. If I advocate for this, Drethon said carefully, there will be resistance. Many on the council still believe humanity is dangerous. "We are dangerous," Admiral Clark said from her position by the window. "But so is every other species with a fleet. The difference is that we won't attack anyone who doesn't attack us first. And how can we trust that?" Carter spoke for the first time since entering the room. "Because you've seen what we do when we have the advantage. The Vornathi gave us every reason to destroy them. We let them go. That should tell you everything you need to know about who we are." Drethan nodded slowly. The human was right. Actions spoke louder than words, and humanity's actions had been remarkably restrained. "I will return to the council," he said finally. "I will advocate for full membership with expanded rights. I cannot promise success, but I will try." "That's all we ask," Cole said. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Council voted on humanity's status. The debate lasted 3 days. Old grievances were aired. Old fears were expressed. But in the end, the outcome was clear. Earth was granted full membership with complete voting rights. For the first time in Council history, a species less than a century old would sit among the founders. President Cole addressed the Council by transmission, accepting the decision. "We will honor every agreement we make," he said. "We expect the same from you. The next time someone mocks humanity in this chamber, remember that we chose peace. We can choose differently." Ambassador Carter and Laura Bennett returned to Station Varanthos 1 month later. They walked through the same corridors where they had been humiliated, past the same species that had laughed at them. No one was laughing now. The council chamber was full when they entered. But this time, Carter did not walk to the observer section at the back. He walked to the main floor, to a seat among the founding species, and sat down. Laura took her place beside him. "Do you think this peace will last?" she asked quietly. Carter looked around the chamber. Representatives from 200 species watched him with a mixture of respect and wariness. The galaxy had changed, and it would never go back to the way things were. "It will last exactly as long as they remember what we showed them," he said. "And humans have a way of making sure the galaxy never forgets." The session began. Earth's voice joined the council. And across the stars, humanity stepped out of the shadows to take their rightful place among the powers of the galaxy. They had been mocked and dismissed. They had been called weak and inferior. Now they were equals, and they always would be.